Holger, are you fine? Thank you. It's been a busy week and 2 exciting but long days. So thank you for joining us for our closing session. We're here to wrap up 2 extraordinary days of the 10th Annual Transforming Transportation. I'm very pleased to reintroduce to you Andrew Steer. Andrew's the 3rd president and CEO of the World Resources Institute. Andrew joined us at WRI last year from the World Bank, where he served as a special envoy for climate change since 2010. Andrew?
Well, good afternoon. This is the final session. This is the opportunity where we get to reflect as to what the last 2 days have been all about. And so we have just over half an hour, and I hope when we leave this room, we'll leave in good spirits, having really got something to take away. So I'm going to open the floor very soon, but I've been in and out, listening to lots of sessions, talking to lots of people, and let me just give you some of my takeaways. I mean, as a non-sustainable transport, professional like you are. By the way, we've got some fantastic sort of blogs and Twitter things. I'll give you just one. Somebody on Twitter wrote, "Being at Transforming Transportation is a bit like watching foreign movies on Netflix, but talking transportation. So many cool people sharing their work in foreign accents." So I think that's as good as it gets. If we're like a good foreign movie on Netflix, it's been worth it, hasn't it? So I'm struck as someone who obviously is engaged in this, but not sort of right there in the trenches. I'm struck by the overwhelming evidence that now exists throughout all the sessions on the sort of the sort of triple win that's available for doing sustainable transportation right. And as I said this morning, we at WRI embark, over the last 10 years, we've known for a long time that the sort of economic rates of return of doing the kind of things that we do, and the environmental rates of return are really great. But I think it's only sort of really recently we fully internalized the huge health rates of return. And so in many ways, the investments, can be justified by 1 or 2 of the 3 benefits. And it seems to me we need to become better at really communicating this sort of 3-fold home run, if you like. And as I said this morning, I really, personally, we want to give a lot of thanks to the Bloomberg Foundation for really the philanthropy, for teaching us that. And now we're really going to a lot of depth to demonstrate it, and many of you are as well. But it seems to me that is sort of an overwhelming truth which now exists, the sort of the triple win. Okay, 5 sort of things that struck me. One, on finance. It's very obvious that sort of leverage is the name of the game. Everybody is rejoicing about the 175 billion. This is a great leadership from the multilaterals, but obviously it will only have the impact if it's able to really leverage. It's a bit like the Green Climate Fund, which is being designed this year, who will have a nice bit of money in it, but it will be trivially unimportant unless it's able to be injected throughout the value chain in a way that leverages. So that's a really big point on finance. The other one relates to the sort of the funding mechanisms at the city level. I think all of us have been aware of sort of the issue in some cities in the world, especially in China, where, in order to get revenue, there's this huge incentive to become further and further out because the public sector owns land out there, and therefore we can raise revenue. So that, if you like, it's a perverse incentive. So it seems to me on finance we had some really interesting thoughts. And again, overwhelming evidence that whilst high-cost investments may be needed and you can get good rates of return on metros and on big flyovers, at the end of the day, if you really want a good rate of return, do some of the lower cost. Rates of return on bike systems, on smaller traffic management systems. You've known this for a long time, but I think getting that out into the public knowledge and at the mayoral level is very important. So 1 is finance. 2, on the issue of empowering cities. I think, again, it came through very, very clearly. As someone who grew up in London, and throughout my childhood there was no mayor of London, and London actually sort of went nowhere. Then there was a mayor of London, doesn't have much power, but even without a whole lot of power, been a huge change. And we heard from Rit Agarwal and others about New York. The mayor has quite a bit of power, but doesn't have power over the metro system. Mexico City has a lot more power. So I think we came to the conclusion that the importance of city management and mayoral management is extremely important. Third point that sort of came through me, these are sort of, some of these are sort of emotional as much as technical, people, not cars. I mean, again, this is a hugely attractive message if we can really capture it. You know, think about moving people, don't think about moving cars. 40% of all the trips in the world are walking, good for you, good for your health. Yes, 800 million cars in the world. Yes, probably will be 2 billion. But what will they be used for? Really important that we manage to have people go to work on public transportation. Lovely quote here. I don't know whether Rakesh Mohan from India is still here. Lovely quote he said yesterday in a session. He said, "We object when a poor person sets up a shack on public property, but we believe we have the right to park our car for free on public property." It's a beautiful image, isn't it? No, you know, don't build your house there. We'll tear it down. But by all means, park your car anywhere you like. Something wrong with that. And of course, for the last 80 years, since the 1930s, cities have been driven by the automobile industry. And as somebody said beautifully just half an hour ago in the urban development group, we must move cities into a post-automobile vision made for pedestrians. You know? I mean, I lived in London recently for 3 years. In those 3 years, I never even considered driving my car into London. And for the rest of my life, I know I will never, ever drive my car into London. Now, why would that be? Lots of reasons. But in a way, that's the mentality that I think we want to do. So that's the third point. Fourth point, collaboration. Look, I think we've had a lot of discussion. A lot of us here are parts of organizations. We talk to each other. We work together, I think, reasonably effectively. But I think we've all concluded that, that we can have better impact if we work together. One example is the 175 billion. I mean, it's all very well the MDBs having that money, but they really they can't push it to sustainable transport. They have to be asked for sustainable transport. The sustainable transport has to be the demand from the cities. And of course, all of us are working in the cities very productively. And within any city, it's very heterogeneous. Some people in certain departments of the city will want that one thing, another. So working together, we can actually, in a very helpful way, respecting city leadership, we can help shape that 175 billion so that it does have the kind of impact that we want. So that was fourth. Fifth point, innovation. I mean, my goodness me, I mean, listening to all of you, it's high-tech innovation. We just had a session on fuel standards and so on, and new fuels and so on. But also, I mean, low-tech innovation. I mean, that's really the most exciting things out there. I mean, you think about the bike sharing thing. It is amazing. Now, you know, 204 cities, 36 countries, 368,000 bikes being shared now. That is up fourfold in just 5 years. And you think about places like Guangzhou, where 84% of the people using bike shares in the city had never cycled in the city before in their lives. You know, that's fairly transformative, isn't it? And it's only beginning. Think of BRT. 10 years ago, only 30 cities, now 154 cities. A whole range of really quite exciting innovations. And the question is, how do we, let's be honest, transport engineers are not normally perceived as the most exciting people in the world. How do we... they are to me, but... so the question is, how do we make this inspiring? Who was talking about making it sexy? The president this morning. This innovation is terribly, terribly exciting. How do we do it? Okay, so here's the question for all of you now. As we've said many times, you know, there are fantastic points of light out there that you know, it can be demonstrated. Overall, however, I mean, let's be honest, at one level we're still scratching the surface, or are we? You know, what would it take to have a tipping point? What would it take to really change the way things are done? Think of the last 10 years. 10 years ago in the MDB, the Millennial Development Goals, take an issue like maternal mortality. No progress whatsoever. None. And everybody said this is so difficult. Something happened relating to leadership, to the right kind of intervention, the right kind of funding, smartly used. Maternal mortality has fallen by 50% in the last 10 years. How do you get that kind of tipping point in what we're talking about today? So that's the question. And what I want to ask you is, we'll open the microphones now. I'd like you to answer, you can answer one of two questions. One, you can say something about the tipping point. Do you think we might be close? Do you think there might be advice for us as we move forward as a community to move further towards a tipping point? The other thing, you might just want to say one thing that you've really taken away from this conference yesterday and today. Who wants to go first? Adriana, see you there. You can stand up. What do you think? And say who you are. I know, and I'm sure most people do.
Adriana from Embark, Mexico. And I would say that I still don't see the tipping point. I think there is still a big struggle between individual motorized transport, being this a car or a motorcycle. Motorcycles increasing, especially in Latin America, very. So I think we have a great view now. We have a more common view. We have a greater community. But I still think we have a lot of challenges in really making this that people know, so that they don't ask for the rights only for the individual space. We still, it's like what Major Bloomberg said, people really want good service, they don't want to pay for it. We would like no traffic, but we would like to be in our cars with no traffic, right? So this is the issue that we still, I think we still haven't moved forward. So great advance, but still great challenges. Still, I think, very far from the tipping point. We need to do a lot more. And finally, I would like to acknowledge this conference itself. First time I came, it was 9 years ago, and we were about 10 people at the WRI room the first day. So it's a big difference. It's a much wider community, and it's very nice to see it.
Wow, well done. Thanks very much. By the way, Adriana, every year, together with her colleagues in Mexico City, puts on this wonderful, what do you call it? The Congreso, where, you know, they have about 800 or 900 people from all over Latin America. If you don't go, go. It's really great. I went last year. Let's take some more. I saw Kelly Larson somewhere. Was she around? Hey, Kelly, why don't you come and say what you think? Kelly runs the Bloomberg philanthropy work on health and is financing this wonderful $125 million program.
Oh, here we go.
Hi, thank you, and congratulations to Embark and the World Bank on a great 2 days of transforming transportation. I, too, don't see the tipping point, but I see the energy and the expertise to reach it in a much faster way. And I think, as what Andrew Steer said earlier, we've got to collaborate. We've got to make sure that we're working together to really reach the tipping point. And I also think that we need to increase the voice of civil society to push governments to reach that tipping point. And right now it feels like there isn't a loud enough voice for safe, sustainable urban transportation. And at Bloomberg Philanthropies, we're all about saving lives. And so I think what I've taken from the last couple of days is hearing more of that, hearing more about road safety within transportation. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Kelly. Back there, yes.
First, Mila Krokau from the PTV Group in Germany. On behalf of all the transport planners in the room and around the world, I'd like to take exception with your comments. They do perceive it to be a sexy industry to be in. Just on that topic.
Yeah, well said.
Just a comment on that for us. The last 2 days has seen a lot of talk about finance and major projects. One thing I'd ask the bank to maybe contemplate for next year is considering technology and participation of some of the industry players, because there are a number of companies like ourselves who are actually pushing the boundaries of what intelligent traffic management systems can offer, even to the point where we can predict the future traffic states and allow people to mitigate against some of the problems that we see in the world today. So to everybody concerned, please consider there are industry players out there. We do want to participate, and we want to be able to have a voice at the table as well, because we can bring solutions.
Good point. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, I'm Michael Replogle with the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy. I agree with Adriana and others that I think we're still shy of the tipping point, but we're really gathering the critical mass that can get us to and past the tipping point. But I do think we need to find ways that we can enable a conversation at a much higher global level and engage transport ministries to engage with finance ministries who are really making a lot of the key decisions about sectoral resource allocation and about how to deal with energy policy in a way that breaks us out of the constraints of the Kyoto Protocol into ways that we can get at these very low-cost win-win-win solutions in the transport sector that have not been revealed through the narrow lens of the kind of energy-based policies under the Kyoto Protocol. We have an opportunity in the next 2 years in the discussions coming up in Poland in December or in November. There will be a transport day on November 17th at the next climate negotiation, in which we hope to bring together a much bigger critical mass of voices who haven't been at the table to bridge the gap between transport and climate and its links to sustainable economic growth and equitable economic growth. And I think only with that kind of conversation will we make through that next breakthrough and get the G20 moving on sustainable transport as a key part of sustainable development, get that conversation in the United Nations and in national governments, which have to enable taking to scale these city-level best practices with national-level best practices to promote and develop sustainable transport and urban development.
Oh, well said. Thank you, Michael, very much indeed. Tony.
Thank you very much. Tony Lindo from Embark Brazil. I think there is something very challenging in our work, actually. If we see the different realities and cities, I think there is only one word that all have in common, which is people. And the cities are very unique, so the problems are really unique, and we have to have that in mind when we try to propose solutions to make them more sustainable. It's very difficult just to transfer the solutions. I mean, we have to see them.
Good point. Good, thank you. Back there. Sorry? Okay, yes, please. Please.
Good evening. I am Makrand Bidwai. I am from Cosmic Academy in Alexandria, Virginia. I am kind of an end user, and what transportation does is spoils the air quality and dims the stars. And what I have noticed here is that we are talking about more capacity, and I come from India, and my experience is as soon as they introduce a fast train like Rajdhani Express, it's overbooked on the first evening, first morning. And I was in New York for 12 years, and they took 7 years to expand the Long Island Expressway when I was commuting from Queens out east with one-lane bottlenecks. As soon as the Long Island Expressway opened, it started clogging. So I think we should think about something, and I was discussing with other people, there was no plenary session on telecommute. There are white-collar jobs. Most of those jobs can be done on your laptops, on your computers, on your tablets. And I mean, this meeting is great, but there are other things when we don't need to come here. And I think what all this expansion of capacity is doing is encouraging consumerism, which is a problem for the environment. And finally, we should think about the Amish people, whether we all can go back there, I'm not saying that, but it's worth considering if we have left our roots way, way back, and we have invited cardiovascular diseases and diabetes and all kinds of things. So there is it needs to be thought on a really multi-scale perspective instead of just transporting people from wherever to wherever. And finally, on not driving car into London, there is a small joke. There was an elderly couple who decided to drive from outside to London for an opera, and the wife said, finally we are here, and the husband said, dear honey, we are only halfway here, now we have to go halfway out to find parking.
Well said on all of that. And that's why the WRI Embark sort of motto is avoid shift improve? So, no, we have to go to the next. There's a whole queue.
Okay. Thank you.
Good, at the end. Thanks.
Rudolf Hitting from the Dutch Cycling Embassy. I think the tipping point is very much dependent on how we create the real social agenda, a real social agenda. We had a lot of workshops last year in London. And London is really trying also to become a cycling city. But the only way to cycle over there is for adult people, not for children, not for elderly, not for most of the women. So as long as we do not make it possible for all people to go from A to B with the mode of transport they like, in a social, equitable way, I think we are not at the tipping point that we want to have.
Good. Thank you very much. Sir?
My name is Tommy Manyati. I'm from the city of Durban in South Africa. I suppose I'm a bit of a glass half full person, because for me, I do believe that the tipping point is pretty close. I think the environment that we have, look, in the country is such that there's a huge amount of funding that is made available for us as transport professionals to deal with public transport, to deal with land use and so on. And the limitation is our own creativity, our own innovation. So I'm hugely enthused by where we are as a country and where we can get to. And I think one of the take-home points for me from having been part of the discussion here for the past 2 days for the first time is the realization that there's a depth of knowledge and depth of expertise that we can tap into as developing countries, such that look, we can maybe leapfrog and do even better than some of the developed parts of the world. Thanks.
Well done. Thanks very much. Well, I think quite a few of us spent quite a lot of time in Durban about 16 months ago, and if I lived there, I'd be a glass half full kind of guy as well. It's a fantastic place. Yes.
Hi, Colin Hughes from ITDP, and one of my, I think we'll really get to the tipping point where, after which it's all downhill, is when we have the public, the broader public, looking at transportation systems and urban systems in general, and really demanding performance in the way. One of my favorite analogies is nobody, in no city is the public happy with constant brownouts or blackouts on an electrical grid. Well, our mobility grids are constantly browned out or blacked out, not operating. We wouldn't accept planes that were crashing all of the time with high fatalities, but on our highways, that's become the status quo. And so I think part of it is also doing good research and analysis and helping the public understand that that these failures of the mobility system are not inevitable, and that we've already, with the avoid shift improved paradigm kind of defined an alternative that's achievable. Then I think it will really become downhill for us.
Good point. I mean, it's that kind of image of brownout, blackout that, can be helpful in communicating. Thank you. Sir. Over there. Okay. Why don't you start over there?
Sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I would like to confirm as well that I am more positive on the tipping point than what has been said mostly. I would go with Maki. And the reason is that, first, we have a platform of coherent knowledge and consensus that we have not had for a long time. And today, the capacity for exchange of knowledge, especially with the middle city who could not have access easily to the knowledge, has changed. And I think with the internet and the rapid dissemination of knowledge, including through Twitter, as it is happening just now, shows that we are closer to the tipping point, with three areas of worries. One is the architecture of governance. You have seen the mayor of New York who cannot have authority on his metro, and we have many consistencies that have come, and this shows also the need for leadership. The second thing is oftentimes we know how to give advice, and this is especially true in the bank, we know how to give advice of where to go, but not how to go there, the sequence of events that need to occur. And the third one is we have spoken of the heart of the city and how fantastic we are to fix Times Square, but what about the suburbs and the poor? And we have a hard time to reconcile being good at urban development and caring for our poor.
Great. Thank you, Marivon, very much indeed. Over there.
Sri Nabudre from Capital District Transportation Committee, a metropolitan planning agency in Albany, New York. I agree with most of the people saying that we are not yet there at the tipping point, but we have definitely gained momentum, and that momentum can take us towards that tipping point soon. Somebody just mentioned about the governance. That, I think, is something that I take from here, that governance structure institutions need to be built in the developing countries with the proper guidelines and the financing mechanism that you mentioned linked to that, which right now is not there, and we need to build that. That it's something that can take us towards that tipping point. Another aspect that I think important is that we still need to, the sexiness that we were talking about, we still need to get out there and get the public support for this. And one way to do probably that is to catch them young. We have seen, at least in American cities, we have seen that the young generation prefer to not drive. They are open to do the alternate modes. Same thing in other countries probably. We should move into that space and bring them into our fold of using alternate modes than just driving. Especially since in developing countries, I'm from India, so I know the situation in India. One way to move up the social status is to own an auto vehicle, whether it is a two-wheeler or moving from two-wheeler to a four-wheeler. That's the mindset where you can move up the status. But if you catch them young saying that is not sexy is to ride a bike, and they catch on to that, then most of these sustainable things that we talk about can be catched on.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That's a really good point. Thank you very much. We'll take just two more because we've got just 5 minutes and the trains always leave on time here.
Thank you. I'm associated both with ITDP and the World Bank. And on the tipping point, I like the idea. It is tipping, but it depends where. And I mean, there is not one tipping point in the world, but it's in various points at different times. And I think that's important. I mean, for example, we have wonderful examples in Bogota, which has done many things right. And then, of course, also in New York, where Times Square is pedestrianized now. And in one event here at TRB, the former mayor of Bogota, Peñalosa, made the point, lauding what happened in New York, is who cares about Bogota? Bogota it's a developing city. Nobody looks at what's happening in Bogota, but what's happening in New York City, people think it's great. And I think this is important. And as things are tipping here, and particularly in Europe, where it has been tipping in many places already, I think this message is something that we should get out. I work for the World Bank in India and various places in Latin America, and we tried, for example, to promote the use of bicycles in Latin America. And the response we got, well, what do you think? Do you think we are, of all things, do you think we are Chinese? They still thought better. They thought they were better than Chinese. No, but do you think we are Chinese or Indians to go on the bicycle? This is a thing of the past. And getting then the message across that in some of the most developed countries in Europe, like Denmark and Holland, the bicycle is really a key transport mode, is a message to get across.
Yeah.
And then one thing which few people know, but I think that's the ultimate tipping point, is in my own country, in Switzerland. In Zurich, they had a vote a year ago, a bit over a year ago, based on a proposition like they have in California. The proposition was to reduce the modal split. I mean, that's an abstract thought, no? They had a vote in Zurich to reduce the modal split from 36% car, which is now more or less, down to 26% by 10 percentage points. And it was accepted by the population. Now, once the whole population in a city where just about everybody has a car, votes to reduce the use of the car. I think that they are over the tipping point. And now the city is actually widening the sidewalks, narrowing the streets and all that.
Perfect. That's well done. That's a nice, inspiring way to almost end. Last one.
Thank you. A lot of pressure. What do these three things have in common? A smart trip card, a bike sharing fob, and an iPhone. Are they alternative methods? Is it data collection? Or is it something else entirely? And I submit that this may be evidence that we are near a tipping point.
Ah, marvelous. Well done. And a tiny comment from...
Tiny comment about a big country.
Right.
About China. China became the largest vehicle market 2 years ago. And a year after that, they have limited the domestic market with 1 million vehicles per year. So I would say that that's a clear example of a tipping point.
Right, well said. Okay, on that final, those encouraging words, Jose Luis and Holger, you come up. These are the guys that actually put this on. And Jose Luis and Holger, thank you very much. We're very grateful to you guys. Thank you very much.
So we believe that our partnership has grown so much that we are doing the closing remarks together.
Actually, that's a little bit scary, but let's try that. And sometimes you say you can sing together, but I'm not sure if we can actually speak together. But we're trying the dialogue here.
I think Andrew did a fantastic job in summarizing what has been the takeaways, some challenges for the future, and also with your inputs, enough in terms of discussing what is the issues at stake. It's a good time to thank everyone.
And as we have also our partners here, so it's not just about World Bank and the World Resources Institute, it's really about the partnership also with the Asian Development Bank, here to highlight also the participation from Robert Gilt, the Inter-American Development Bank, with also Nestor Rowe and a fantastic team here. The Institute for Transportation Development Policy here also with the founder of ITDP, Michael Reploge, with the Clean Air Asia, with Sophie Punte and a wonderful team. And not to forget, of course, also the Sustainable Low Carbon Transport Partnership with Corny Husengo and Tom Himlin.
Special thanks to the WRI Embark team that make this happen, Darío Hidalgo, Aileen Kerrigan, Kari Deleski, Taina Duong, Benoit Colling, and others.
And on the tipping point, in fact, I must say, and I agree also with Gerhard, there are many tipping points, but for me, one tipping point, when the World Bank president starts really to talk about sustainable transport, this is for me one key tipping point. And thanks also for bringing him here. But also like to express a big thank also to the World Bank team under Marco Hell, but a special thanks also to Thierry, to Chalpon, and Catherine Russell, and last but not least, is my partner in crime here, Opi Agarwal. So thanks a lot.
We also had a big presence coming from the countries, and you are the practitioners, you are the ones that make things happen, you are the heroes that advance this agenda. So let me acknowledge, I cannot mention all the names, but at least the list of countries where delegations came and enriched this discussion, from Brazil, India, China, Mexico, South Africa, the Russian Federation, Nigeria, Ecuador, Singapore, and Korea. So, Holger, so I think, Colombia, definitely. It's always
and many more countries
others.
And many others.
Yeah. So a big challenge for next year. Whether we have reached or not the tipping point, we will have to demonstrate by the progress we are going to achieve this coming year. what do you want to say to conclude?
Well, let's do it. I think we heard so much. There's not one message, there are many messages, but I see here, so we really can do it. And I think now it's less time to talk, but time also first for a good weekend, for rest, but then also for more action everywhere in every single country, in every single city.
Thank you. As a host, I would like thanking all of you to reiterate our commitment. This was the first time that our president came and talked so openly about putting sustainable transport at the top of the agenda. Shared prosperity means inclusion, and inclusion means transport. Working to put transport in the climate agenda, so you can be assured of our commitment. And I can do the talking, but here with me I have the managers that we compose the Transport Sector Board. Please, if you can stand. Just to tell you that we are all aligned and we are going to make this happen. We are committed to working with you in a partnership that will allow us to increase capacity, to make the lives of the mayors that have the vision easier by creating the constituencies, and moving this agenda forward with central government, national governments, as we see fit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It really was
Yeah, no, it was nice.